Why toxic positivity is destroying your mental health. The truth, no one tells you how the good vibes only obsession is creating a generation of emotionally stunted adults. Have you noticed how everyone seems terrified of feeling anything that isn't pure happiness? It's like sadness, anger, or anxiety became some kind of emotional plague that must be immediately cured with a heavy dose of positive thinking. But here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to tell you. The sick obsession with forced positivity is literally rewiring your brain for emotional failure. Toxic positivity isn't personal development, it's psychological warfare disguised as self-help. When you force yourself to smile while your world is falling apart, when you repeat empty mantras about gratitude while ignoring real problems, you're not growing. You're programming yourself to become emotionally incompetent and mentally fragile. Research from UC Berkeley reveals that people who consistently suppress negative emotions experience dramatically higher cortisol levels, the stress hormone that destroys your body from the inside out. The cruel irony: the harder you try to force happiness, the more anxious and depressed you become. It's like trying to cure a broken leg by putting makeup on. It looks better on the surface, but underneath it's rotting away. The problem is we live in a culture that's turned emotions into consumer products. Sadness is low vibration. Anger is toxic energy. Fear is negative frequency. But these emotions exist for crucial evolutionary reasons. They're alarm systems telling you something needs your attention, not your denial. When you embrace toxic positivity, you're essentially disconnecting your emotional warning system. It's like removing all the smoke detectors from your house because you don't like the noise they make. You might have temporary peace, but when the real fire starts, you'll be caught completely defenseless and unprepared. True emotional maturity doesn't come from pretending everything is fine. It comes from developing the courage to feel everything that needs to be felt, process those emotions intelligently, and then make conscious decisions about how to respond. That's real personal revolution, this cotton candy fantasy they're selling you everywhere. The billion-dollar self-help industry has convinced you that negative emotions are your enemy. But they're actually your greatest teachers. They show you what matters, what's working, what isn't, and what needs to change. When you silence them, you lose access to the most valuable information system you have: your authentic emotional intelligence. This isn't about becoming a drama queen or wallowing in negativity. It's about developing what psychologists call emotional granularity, the ability to distinguish between different emotional states and use that information strategically. People with high emotional granularity are more successful, healthier, and genuinely happier than those trapped in forced positivity cycles. If this content is making you question some beliefs you held as gospel truth, leave a comment sharing your experience. And if you want to discover more uncomfortable truths about personal development, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. Why suppressing negative emotions turns you into an emotional time bomb ready to explode. Here's something the positivity gurus desperately don't want you to discover. Repressed emotions don't vanish into thin air, they accumulate like toxic waste in your psychological basement. It's like trying to hold in gas during an important business meeting. Might work temporarily, but when it finally comes out, it's going to be far worse than if you dealt with it naturally from the start. Groundbreaking neuroscience research from Harvard Medical School shows that when you repeatedly suppress emotions, your brain literally rewrites its own architecture. The amygdala, responsible for emotional processing, becomes hyperactive and oversensitive, while your prefrontal cortex, the part that should regulate these responses, weakens and atrophies. The result? You transform into an emotional landmine disguised as a Zen master. Think about that person, who's always smiling, always posting inspirational quotes, always claiming everything is amazing. Now, think about how they absolutely lose their mind over minor inconveniences: a slow barista, a misinterpreted text message, unexpected traffic. That's not coincidence. That's the psychological price of living in constant emotional denial and suppression. Forced positivity creates a dangerous disconnect between your internal reality and external performance. You become a method actor playing a role 24/7, and that constant performance is absolutely exhausting. Your vital energy gets trapped maintaining a facade, instead of flowing naturally through authentic experiences and genuine responses. The most devastating irony is that by trying to avoid negative emotions, you're also blocking your capacity for real joy and authentic happiness. Emotions function like muscles. If you don't use the full range of motion, everything atrophies and weakens. When you suppress sadness, you're simultaneously diminishing your ability to experience genuine euphoria. You get stuck in an artificial emotional flatline. This emotional suppression manifests in your physical body in catastrophic ways. Chronic muscle tension, digestive problems, insomnia, unexplained fatigue, autoimmune disorders. Your body is literally screaming to process what your mind keeps denying. It's like your emotions are pounding on the back door while you pretend nobody's home. Clinical studies from Stanford University demonstrate that people who practice emotional suppression have significantly higher rates of cardiovascular disease, compromised immune systems, and accelerated aging. Your body keeps the score of every emotion you refuse to feel, and eventually, that bill comes due with interest. The solution isn't becoming an emotional hurricane or drama addict, but developing what I call emotional fluency, the skill of recognizing, naming, and processing emotions without judgment or resistance. This means giving yourself permission to feel anger when something is genuinely unfair, sadness when there's real loss, fear when there's legitimate danger. Emotional fluency also means understanding that feelings are temporary visitors, not permanent residents. They come with information, deliver their message, and naturally move through you when you don't resist their presence. Fighting them is like trying to stop a river with your bare hands, exhausting and ultimately futile. If you've recognized yourself as this emotional time bomb disguised as a positive person, hit that like button. And if you want to learn practical techniques for developing real emotional fluency, subscribe to this channel. How the positivity industry steals your ability to solve real problems. Let's talk about the elephant in the room that nobody wants to acknowledge. Forced positivity is the opium of the modern masses. It keeps you drugged on the illusion that everything will work out if you just think positive enough, while your actual problems continue growing like a cancer you refuse to examine or treat. The brutally honest truth is that the positivity industry has transformed you into a passive consumer of your own life. Instead of teaching you to be an active problem solver and critical thinker, it sells you the fantasy that you can manifest solutions through vibrations and affirmations. It's like trying to extinguish a house fire with positive thoughts about rain. Research from the University of Waterloo reveals that people constantly exposed to toxic positivity messages develop what psychologists call effort aversion syndrome. They begin believing that if something requires hard work or causes discomfort, then it can't be the right path. This belief system is absolutely devastating for any meaningful growth or achievement. Think about the biggest breakthroughs in your life. Did they come from moments of comfort or from situations where you were forced to confront something difficult and challenging? Every significant advancement emerges from friction, resistance, and the discomfort of stretching beyond your comfort zone. But forced positivity programs you to avoid exactly these growth-producing experiences. When you're constantly telling yourself, everything happens for a reason, and just think positive, you lose the motivation for necessary changes and difficult decisions. Why would you leave a toxic relationship if gratitude solves everything? Why would you change careers if positive thinking will magically transform your abusive boss? Why would you address health problems if good vibes will cure everything miraculously? Toxic positivity also destroys your ability to make realistic risk assessments and intelligent decisions. When you're always focused on the bright side, you lose the capacity to recognize warning signs and red flags. You become vulnerable to abusive relationships, financial disasters, and life choices that anyone with functioning critical thinking would avoid completely. The positivity industrial complex profits from keeping you helpless and dependent on their products. They've convinced you that taking action to solve problems means you're not trusting the universe or operating from fear. This is psychological manipulation designed to keep you buying their courses, books, and seminars instead of developing real-world competence. What you need isn't more positivity, you need more intelligent realism and strategic thinking. This means looking at problems directly, without unnecessary drama, but also without denial or wishful thinking. It means developing discomfort tolerance and the ability to remain functional even when circumstances aren't perfect or ideal. Life isn't a curated Instagram feed or motivational poster. It's messy, complicated, unfair, and sometimes brutal. When you accept this reality, something powerful happens. You stop wasting energy fighting against what is, and start using that energy to navigate through challenges more effectively and intelligently. The most successful people throughout history weren't positive thinkers, they were realistic problem solvers who could see situations clearly and take appropriate action. They understood that optimism without strategy is just wishful thinking, and strategy without realistic assessment is just fantasy. If you've realized that forced positivity has been sabotaging your problem-solving abilities, leave a comment about which area of your life has been most affected. Liking this video also helps more people discover these truths. And if you're ready for a more realistic approach to personal development, subscribe to this channel. How to build real emotional resilience without falling into the false positivity trap. It's time to stop being a prisoner of toxic programming and start building genuine emotional fortress, not made of rose-colored illusions, but forged from steel tempered in reality. The difference between forced positivity and authentic resilience is the same as between a house of cards and a skyscraper with deep foundations and structural integrity. The first thing you must understand is that resilience doesn't mean being immune to difficult emotions, it means having the capacity to feel everything completely while maintaining your functionality and decision-making ability. It's like being an expert surfer. You don't control the waves, but you develop the skill to navigate through any storm without drowning or losing your balance. Studies from the Institute of Cognitive Neuroscience show that people with high emotional resilience share one crucial characteristic: they don't judge their emotions as good or bad. They view them as valuable information and strategic data. Anger tells you a boundary was violated. Sadness tells you something important was lost. Fear tells you to pay attention to potential threats. Anxiety tells you to prepare more thoroughly. Here's a practical exercise that will revolutionize your relationship with emotions. When an intense emotion arises, instead of trying to change it or judge it, ask 3 simple questions. First, what is this emotion trying to communicate to me? Second, what unmet need is it signaling? Third, what constructive action can I take based on this information and intelligence? This transforms you from a victim of your emotions into an investigator and strategic user of them. You develop what I call emotional curiosity, the ability to explore your internal states with the same objectivity as a scientist, studying fascinating phenomena and gathering valuable data. Another crucial element is building what psychologists call distress tolerance, the ability to remain present and functional even when things aren't perfect or comfortable. Start small. Stay hungry for 1 extra hour before eating. Take a cold shower for 30 seconds. Sit with anxiety for 5 minutes without trying to fix or escape it. The real emotional revolution happens when you stop trying to control how you feel and start focusing on what you can actually control: your actions, your choices, your responses to events, and your commitment to your values. This is genuine empowerment, not the fantasy of manifestation and magical thinking they're selling everywhere. Advanced emotional intelligence means developing what researchers call meta-emotional skills, the ability to have emotions about your emotions without getting trapped in recursive loops. You can feel anxious about being angry, notice that meta-emotion, and still make rational decisions based on your core values and long-term objectives. Remember, you don't need to be happy all the time to live an extraordinary life and achieve remarkable success. You need to be present, conscious, and willing to experience everything life offers without losing sight of your values, goals, and authentic purpose. This is emotional maturity, and it's what separates people who actually evolve from those trapped in cycles of self-deception and wishful thinking. Real resilience means building the capacity to surf any emotional wave, while staying connected to your deeper wisdom and strategic thinking. It means becoming comfortable with discomfort and finding strength in vulnerability, rather than hiding behind artificial positivity masks. If this content has made you reconsider your relationship with emotions and positivity, leave a comment about which insight impacted you most. Like this video to help more people discover these truths. Subscribe if you want to continue questioning the lies sold as personal development, and share this with someone who needs to hear this message too.